My name is Mike Guthrie. I'm from Fresno, California originally. That's where I lived when I started collecting insulators. And I now reside in Vancouver, Washington. I've been a collector of things since I was a Cub Scout. 8 years old, started collecting stamps. And I think that most collectors will tell you that it's kind of a genetic thing. It comes naturally, and if you're a collector of one thing, you are a collector. And if you're not, you don't understand the concept. But I started collecting stamps in elementary school, and it just progressed through a variety of different things until adulthood. My wife in 1981 and I used to enjoy going to flea markets and swap meets and picking up old memorabilia from eras past to decorate our home with that we lived in the country. And one of the things that was available at these swap meets was insulators, mostly clear and aqua, but the aqua caught my eye because I've always loved color. And so I started buying insulators for usually not more than $0.25 a piece. During that time, I accumulated a massive collection of 17 different pieces. And I thought I had everyone known to man. And then one day at a Sunnyside swap meet in Fresno, California, I ran into Bill Heitcotter, longtime collector, and he had a table full of stuff that basically blew my socks off. He had purples and greens and grays and cobalts, colors that I had not seen at the swap meet generally, and I was just instantly hooked. And he told me about the Chico, California show that was coming up shortly after we met, and he said, you might want to go check it out. And you might also want to check out this magazine we have called Crown Jewels of the Wire, because it comes out every month, and there's articles about insulators and the collectors and so on. And so that was my first introduction to the organized, formalized side of insulator collecting. He became my mentor, and he was very helpful and exposed me, as I mentioned earlier, to the organized side of the hobby. Ultimately, I ended up purchasing his collection when I got into that side of it. Everything was new and interesting and exciting and different, and I can't point to any single experience that was more significant than another. But I started meeting people, developing friendships, visiting them at their homes and seeing their collections, and each one of those was a contributing factor to what you wanted to be interested in. I've been collecting now 42 years, and there were many pieces that came and went that I liked a lot. A few in particular, but probably the most close to my heart, dearest to my heart, if you will. I was on a motorcycle trip with my wife, and after the show we went on a trip up to Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks, and on the way back we came through Virginia City, Nevada. We stopped in Virginia City, and we're walking through the tourist part of town, and there was a souvenir shop. And I stuck my head in the door, and I saw on a shelf in the distance maybe 100 insulators sitting there. I went in to have a look, kneeled down on the floor, looked over the insulators, and they're all very, very common. Stuff that's on the freebie table at shows, except for one. And in the middle of the selection of insulators was an EC&M. And so I picked up the EC&M and looked at it, and it was still kind of dirty because the owner of the store had just dug it out of a privy 2 weeks before I got there. So I'm going, oh my gosh, look, it's green, it's green. My wife said, shh, they're gonna hear you. And so I said, okay. So I looked at it and it had a $5 price sticker on it. And I took it to the register and asked the guy about it. He said, yeah, I dug that in a privy 2 weeks ago. And he said, I didn't know what it was worth. And it did have a thumb-sized flake out of the skirt. But I said, that doesn't bother me. It's worth what you're asking. So I bought it. And I got it out outside and held it up in the sunlight. And it turned out, even being dirty from being buried for 150 years, it turned out to be a bright chartreuse green full of amber olive swirls and tiny, tiny seed bubbles. It was absolutely spectacular. And it was like, wow, this is my find of a lifetime in an antique store. You read about other people walking into a store and they find something rare, but this was my find. This was it. I took it home and showed it to some people, and they offered me $400 for it, and 2 weeks later they offered me $800 for it. And then I knew I was onto something at that point. I said, nah, not gonna sell. Well, I did keep it for 30 years and ultimately sold it in an auction catalog. But that was probably my all-time favorite piece, because it's the one I kind of found, kind of found it. By the early 1990s, I had the largest identified collection in the world. I had north of 9,500 pieces, and every one was displayed on a shelf or hanging or something. And then I had to move. I moved from the house with all the space to a house without all the space, and had to do some serious downsizing. I met Kevin Lawless for the first time, and Kevin was president of the NIA, and I didn't know anything about NIA. I was kind of not organizationally charged, and we talked till about 2 in the morning about Insulators and the NIA and the direction it was heading, and things that were passionate to him, and he convinced me to get involved. And so I became the information director shortly after that, and served in that capacity for a couple of years before being elected president of the NIA. And then I served on the board, I think, a total of about 14 consecutive years in about 6 different positions. The organization was the glue that held the hobby together, in my view. And if you're going to be part of something like that, and people are investing their time and energy and treasures into making it work for other people, then I should pay my dues too. And I would encourage people who are in the hobby not to just be bystanders and participators in shows and so on, but to get involved. The best part of this hobby is the people. The Insulators are merely a way to get people together. And it's actually the people that make the hobby. To new collectors, I would say, check things out. Explore the universe, and maybe develop a direction going in, so you don't have to change directions a lot with your collecting. If you want to collect glass, if you want to collect porcelain, if you want to collect a certain region, certain style, certain color, try to narrow your focus in the beginning so you don't spin your wheels a lot. And be willing to get involved. Take every opportunity to go explore and visit and experience other people and their joy for the hobby, because it's contagious.